Hi, welcome to this week's Authors Love Readers podcast, where we delve into the stories behind the stories. We're asking authors questions, some of them fun, some of them serious, and from their answers, you're going to learn things you never knew about the people who write the stories you love. My name is Patricia McLinn. I'm your host and designated question asker.
I'm Elaine Raco Chase, and I love readers.
Now, let's start the show. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Authors Love Readers podcast. With me this week is Elaine Raco Chase, and we are not going to say how many years ago we met through the Washington Romance Writers, but it's been a few. It's been a few here and there. And I'm going to let Elaine tell you, because you've done writing in a lot of genres, and I will let you explain.
Well, yes, Patricia and I have met when we were wee girls.
Very cool. Yep.
Actually, this year I celebrate 40 years as a published author.
Oh my goodness. Oh my
I
God.
know.
Congratulations. That's fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you. And I do write in a lot of different genres. I first started in romance. Then I moved to nonfiction, and actually my very first nonfiction book was Amateur Detectives, How to Write the Amateur Detective Novel, and it was nominated for an Agatha Christie Award. So I was really excited. I figured I lost by 4 votes, which were the other 4 people against me. I like to think that. Makes me feel better. Now I am writing, I guess I've made my own genre up. Explicit thrillers that are slightly romantic comedies as well. How's that for a mixed genre?
That hits several of them, yes.
Yes, it does.
How did you come to this?
Believe it or not, as I was going through old files, the very first book I wrote, and I was very, very lucky. I went to a writers' convention, and I truthfully did not belong there. It was 1977, and it was at very prestigious women's college in upstate New York. And the ladies there were all about poetry. The only poem I know is There Once Was a Girl from Nantucket, so we won't even go there. And I don't know why they were all into kite flying. They were all over the lawns kite flying. And I chose carefully the workshops I wanted to go and listen to. And a couple were very interesting. And that's how I immediately knew I really didn't belong there. And they went around the room, and you were to tell what you were writing. And I said, I wrote mysteries and romance novels. And the snickering was quite loud.
Oh,
and I said, yes, but they're a mass market, and unlike poetry, they sell. And everyone was quiet. And after the class ended, this woman came up to me and said, hi. And I said, hi. And she said, I wanted to ask you a question. And I said, okay. She said, do you talk like you write? And I said, yes, I do. And she said, that's great. She said, do you have anything with you? And I said, well, I don't know why, but I did bring with me the first 10 chapters of a romance novel and an outline for a mystery. She goes, I'd like them. She goes, here's my card. And she took all my stuff. And that was the last time I saw her. Now, 20 minutes later, I'm thinking, what the heck did you just do? I
When you
know, and I
gave
had
this
this little
to
business card,
yeah.
and then, of course, 10 an hour later after I got home, I couldn't find the card. I was totally panicked. My husband said to me, "You didn't sign anything, did you?" I said, "No, I didn't, honest." And and then I just figured, "Okay, you have copies." And back then it was all onion skin, typewriter and onion skin. Yeah, there was no
Wow.
Xerox machines. There were real photocopiers, but that cost a fortune. And so I just said, okay, well,
Mm.
you learned a few things. You now know you don't go to any more college conferences, and just get back and do it the way they tell you to send out. So this was Saturday. Sunday came. Monday came. The kids, I had two little kids under the age of 6. Tuesday morning, I get a telephone call, and it's the agent. And the first thing I said to her was, I'm really sorry. I should never have given you that stuff. And she goes, "I sold it." And I said, "I'm sorry, you did what?" And she said, I sold your book." I said, "Well, I can't afford that. I cannot afford to have you sell something and for me to pay for it." She goes, "No, no, they're paying you." And I went, "What?" I said the word "what" a lot. And that's how my career started. I
Wow.
know, it's really this
Did you stay
stupid.
with her?
I
Is that
I
agent?
stayed with Denise Marshall since
Oh.
1978. Although now I guess I'm an indie author because I just do my books, and then either do create space, mostly ebooks, and I don't have to worry about missing a deadline, um, or
Mhm.
life that comes into your deadline time any longer. So I know it's the craziest story ever, and that's what happened.
Well, that's terrific. It was meant to be, clearly.
Well, one likes to think that.
I had I was a member of Washington Romance Writers, and I had an 8-minute session with an editor from Harlequin to pitch my story idea. She'd come down to a meeting from New York and did the pitch, and she said, "Okay, I want to see the whole manuscript." I thought, "Uh-oh." Didn't have a whole manuscript, so I had to get on my on my horse and get it done. And I was very fortunate that I'd done a complete book before that, a complete manuscript, but it wasn't really a romance. It was romance, mystery, international intrigue, sports.
Holy moly!
I had oh yeah,
You
I
were the
had it all in
Chinese
there.
menu.
Yeah, yeah. So, and that book did sell, that first one, but I have had my share of rejections since then, so they come to you one way or the other, I think.
They do. And, you have to be prepared to either agree to what they want changed or hold your ground. And it's a very interesting thing.
It is, and it's interesting, and there's still rejection as an indie author because you can write something that the readers don't care for, and I recognize that, and I'm gonna put something out that is not exactly what I've been writing. It's not what I've been writing, period.
Hmm.
And I recognize that it might not resonate with a lot of readers. And I'm okay with that because I need to write this and it's going to get out there and these characters who have been bugging me for all this time will finally stop bugging me. So, but that rejection never quite stops, I think in writing as long as you put it out there publicly.
Absolutely. And I remember when someone said to me, well, the first time you get a bad review or somebody tells you it's going to be like they told you your kids are ugly. And it is, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
terrible. And you want to like charge back, especially as and I'm not sure the readers quite understand what authors go through with trolls. Trolls are
Mhm.
people who claim they've read your book and yet will write a review that is I you look at it and go, those aren't even my characters. And then if you my big mistake was responding like that. And I said, I'm
Mm.
sorry, you must have got my book mixed up with something else because those are not my characters. Holy mackerel. Like 20 people attacked me for saying that.
Oh,
Yeah.
dear.
So I don't respond anymore. Well, I
No.
do, but it's basically beating up the pillow on my bed. It's very therapeutic.
I had a review that unfortunately was taken down. It was that it said, yes, brightens my teeth.
I,
And and it went on, and it talked about the body of it was how his teeth really were whiter. And I was like, this is great. I can do a whole marketing campaign around how my book whitens teeth. I made the mistake of telling a representative from Amazon about that. And darn, they took the review down.
one review I got was from a troll that said, this book reminds me of a bowel. She didn't even spell bowl right, of Brussels sprouts. And I
Oh.
used that. Not only did sales of Brussels sprouts go up, but sales of my book went up too.
Okay, let's let the readers get to know you a little bit more. So we know that Brussels sprouts are not your favorite taste. What is?
New York cheesecake.
Oh,
Okay.
yum.
Yes.
But
Yes.
what's
New York cheesecake is great.
the just plain or with strawberry or blueberry or
I'll take anything on it. It's that nice stick to the roof of your mouth, creamy taste. Ooh.
Now, with doing some thrillers, do you have fears yourself and do you work those into your books?
No, actually, I don't. I'm pretty, that's a very interesting question. No, I can honestly say the only fear I ever had was that someone would steal my children when I first started writing, because of course they think all writers are loaded. But then when if they had stolen any of my children, they would have returned them with the note and a check and a sympathy card.
Sympathy.
So that went right away. And then as my kids got older, my son actually became a special police officer for the federal government, and nobody would ever steal him. He would have killed them quickly. and my daughter became a school teacher, and since all her work was with 2-year-olds, she actually one time got a job handling a construction crew. And I said to her, you know nothing about this. She goes, don't be silly. I taught 2 and 3-year-olds. It works perfectly. So yeah. So no, that was my only fear. Now, yeah, I'm pretty grounded. Most of my thrillers are faction, and every day I wake up and there's another fact out there that goes with one of my thrillers, and I think it's so much fun. So not much of these days fiction and faction and the truth and becomes stranger than fiction.
Do you think that there are misconceptions that people have about thrillers and what they are? Clearly, people who are not reading thrillers. Or do you think people have a pretty clear idea of what's in them?
Well, I think it depends on what kind of mystery thriller you're writing. There's certainly a lot of political thrillers. I don't do that. I have my second in the series, Dark Corners, is a techno-thriller, which is the one every day. Last night, apparently 2 UFOs were sighted by 2 Delta airline planes. And my husband said to me, he goes, that's in your book. I said, yes, it is. And it just depends on what you're in. I don't do psychological thrillers. I do sort of snarky comedy like MASH with thrillers, and they're mostly howdunnits as well as a whodunit. But how was it done is the key.
But so the reader would not know at the beginning who did it.
No. Nobody knows who did it. And then they also know don't know how it was done. And then as you get into the story, you feed your readers a little bit to keep them hooked. And then you have to play fair. So will they figure it out? Well, you hope they figure out some of it, but not the whole book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what got you from, the first days that you could put pen to paper as a little kid to where you wanted to write that book that you gave the 10 chapters to at that conference? Was there in particular, I'm thinking, was there a childhood book that made you go, wow, I love stories?
Well, I was a voracious reader. Grew up in Schenectady, New York, and the only way to escape was through a book. And I read everything. My zipped through everything, and went from reading Nancy Drew right to Mickey Spillane. And
Oh, that's a leap.
I know it was, but I'll never forget the one time I was reading Valley of the Dolls, and I had finished it, and my mother picked it up before I knew she got that, and then she came out of the bathroom where she had been in the bathtub with my book, and it was swollen up like 10 times its size. And she said to my father, "Ernie, my God, do you know what this girl is reading?" And my father looked up at her and said, "Yeah, I'm bringing her home Mickey Spillane's from the GE library." So that was me. And I was 12 years old at the time.
I think the Mickey Spillanes were probably
The Mickey Spillanes were wonderful.
more wholesome, I guess.
Yeah, I had the great privilege to meet Mickey Spillane. Yes,
Oh,
at
how
a mystery
cool.
writers meeting in New York City, and he just a very nice gentleman. But looking back on those books, they had the most lurid covers you could ever see, and
Mhm.
the stories. And yet, comparing them to romance novels, which all of us have had interesting covers over the years. But one of Mickey's books was well known for the question. The answer to the whole book was Juno was a man. As a romance writer, Mickey would have found out Juno was a man by page 8, not the end of the book. So it's it's interesting what people thought was racy back in the
Yes.
50s and 60s. Yeah.
Yes. Things change. And
Yes,
and
that's true.
I'm very interested in history. And one of the things I love, one of the factoids I love, is that, like, in the colonial era, it was considered racy for women to show their elbows, which
Mhm.
is one of the reasons they had all the lace around the bottom of the sleeve. It was to call attention to where it was racy. And yet they had these low necklines. That was no big deal. So things change over history, and who knows, maybe it'll be something else will be racy in a few more decades.
It'll be interesting. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned your mom and dad. Did they have sayings that now you hear out of your mouth?
Well, unfortunately, I lost them both in 2005, but I can hear my
Uh,
mother every day and my father laughing. Some of her best one-liners I have shared when they went to Italy for the first time, and my husband and we had just gotten married, and we actually were staying in their house because they had a dog and we were taking care of the dog. And so I get a little postcard in the mail, and it's from my mom, postmark from Italy, and she said, "We're having a wonderful time. It's so interesting that the Italian moon is so much bigger than the moon back in Schenectady." And I thought about that for a minute, and I said to my husband, "There's only one moon, right?" I said, "There's not like a separate Italian moon." And had been in the Navy, and he'd been all around the world. And he laughed and he said, "No, there's only one moon, but
yeah,
she's looking
one
at it
moon.
from a different perspective on the horizon." So, I every friend of mine who's gone to Europe, I say, now remember, the moon there is so much bigger than the moon you're leaving behind. And it's like, and then my friend Ann Reiser, who is also a romance author, said to me, damn you, Elaine, we landed in Italy, and what did the first thing that come out of my mouth? Wow, the Italian moon is so much bigger than the one in Virginia. So yeah, my mom had some good one-liners. My dad always kept me grounded, and he was just great. So you do hear your parents' voice. Oh, and the biggest one I hear every year on my birthday is my mother saying, I never thought I'd have a daughter as old as you. I say that to my daughter now too.
Of course, you gotta pass those things on, right?
You have to share it, yeah.
Do you have any things that, earlier in your life that really bothered you, or that you really watched carefully, and now you go, what the heck?
That's an interesting question. Apparently interesting is my word of the day. We were bullied quite a bit.
Oh,
And
no.
yeah, we were the only Italians, and my dad looked more Jewish than Italian with his nose. We were bullied a lot, even when I grew up, and I was living in Saratoga Springs, and I had the two kids, and mom and dad came one day, and my father took the kids for a walk, and it was almost Christmas time, and then one of the neighbors had a Christmas party, and another neighbor said, well, what are you doing here? You don't celebrate Christmas. I said, excuse me? Well, I saw your dad with your two kids, and he's obviously Jewish. So what are you doing at a Christmas party? I said,
Oh, my goodness.
I know. I said, actually, we're Italian and we do celebrate Christmas. Oh, well, that's wonderful. Then I'll let my kids play with your kids. And I said to her, nah, don't bother. What can you do? You find people are interesting. Do I use that when I write books? Oh, yeah. It's fun to take things and twist them around.
Having people in books can be the best revenge.
Oh, you betcha. You betcha. I hate to tell you how many kids I went to high school with that I've killed in a book. Totally in a book.
Do you have any bad habit words that you come back to all the time in your writing, and you have to go back and check through your manuscripts?
I used to, but when I was writing for Bantam Doubleday Dell, actually back at that time, Bantam was a separate company, and Dell, I had the best editors, regular editors and line editors. And the line editors, I went down, they invited me down to New York, and I went, and they actually showed me exactly how to line edit. And they were ruthless, and I became equally as ruthless. And I just got rid of all these extra words. Most of the time, writers use the word said. Tom said, she said, they said, I said. One editor loved the word said. Said to me is a useless word. Put a name on it or add emotion to it. But people, of course, who else would say it? There's only a person there. So I actually do a lot of editing for other authors, and I still do editing for editors for publishing companies.
I bet that informs a lot of your writing.
It does.
Doing the editing.
And I'm very careful because everybody has their own story to tell. I'm not going to tell your story for you. I will highlight some things that I think you need to take another look at. But your book is your book, and that's it. But I will say, this can be made more powerful if you do this, or you don't really need this, or something like that. I taught creative writing from actually first grade all the way through college. And I'm very hard. One of my students said, I was a Marine, and I think you made me want to cry. And I said, well, if you were a Marine, then you need to fix your character because it doesn't sound like a Marine to me. And of all the students I've had over 24 students get published.
Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah.
I was at an event in the fall where a student I'd had came up and who was there as a published author. It was really
It's really
very
fun,
touching.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's terrific to share that and have it keep going on. Although I don't think I've made anybody cry that I know of anyhow. So one of the readers asks, and this is a question we've gotten before, but I like the way she asks it. She says, "Where do your stories come from? I know one author who dreams her stories. Another has a character suddenly taking up residence in her head. So how are your beautiful stories born?"
With the old line, what if?
Mm.
What if I have a person who does X, Y, and Z?
Where does the concept for the X, Y, and Z come from?
It just sort of appears. One time, one of my books, I did the whole story. Every year, I get Cosmos horoscopes. And I'm a Virgo. We're not very interesting. And I was reading through, and one was a Scorpio, and oh man, the right up on a Scorpio was woo, and I really liked her, and I thought, now who could I pair her with? She would be really happy this way, this way, this way. So I just created a book out of the horoscopes.
Huh.
And it worked very
Okay.
well. Other times I'll read somebody's bio and or look up something that was interesting. Um, and do that. In Dare the Devil, that was a time when the big productions were going on, and all you saw at the end of a movie was stunt people and these massive lists of all these stunt
Oh.
people. And I thought, holy mackerel, I don't know if the actress really did much in there. Look at all the stunt people. And so Dare the Devil is a story about a woman who is a woman, and they are shooting their movie. They have created like at the dawn of time with a saber-toothed tiger and a woolly mammoth, and this poor group of ranch hands all of a sudden they didn't know what the hell they found except a half-naked woman and a saber-toothed tiger right there looking at them. And so that was fun to do a whole book on a stunt people and a movie and some poor ranchers.
Did you have to do a lot of research for that? How did you go about that?
I called them. I got a name and did a call and talked to them, and they were all wonderful. And then
These were the stunt people?
stunt people, yeah.
Mhm.
And I always look for names then when I see a movie and see if anybody I talked to was in there. But I also had fun calling a forest ranger, and I was living in Florida at the time, and so I called the forest ranger, and he was really kind to me and told me what the land looked like and everything, and
Ah.
and it was fun. So yeah, I do a lot of research on books. I just don't sit there and make it up because somebody is gonna lives there, and they'll know if you've really screwed up what the land looks like or what the people looks like or
That's true.
what everything is there.
Where in the process are you doing the research? Are you doing it before you start the book? Are you doing it as you're developing the story? Are you doing it during the writing process?
All of that.
Mm.
Sometimes I think I have it all nailed down, and I'm very old fashioned. I do the old line by line. I want to go here, there, and everywhere, and then I'll find my characters. Everybody knows. I share magazines, but they know they get something that has been taken apart because I'll pull people out who have the look I want and clothes that they're going to be wearing. So I do all that. And then I may find something that would be perfect for the book that I didn't even think about. And so I'll
Mhm.
incorporate it that way.
And what's your favorite part of the writing process?
Dialogue. I used to
Mm.
write advertising copy and commercials, and I did radio shows. So I'm a dialogue writer. In fact, what stresses me out the most is to put description in there. And I lasted. This is one of my little secrets. I sort of became well known for doing radio shows and all this time. So I was asked to come to New York City and to contribute to a little pilot show they were working on that was called Saturday Night Live.
Oh my
I know.
goodness.
I lasted a whole week because A, I wasn't drinking, B, I wasn't on drugs, and C, they made no sense to me. But it was fun. And I met a lot
I
of
bet you got
oddly
great
interesting
stories from that
people.
week. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Can you look at your books and as a whole, do they tend to change a lot from what your original concept was to what it is when the book comes out?
Not really. I may find
Mm.
some. Well, I'll tell you, I'm working on a thriller right now that's actually in the cosmetic industry, which I know doesn't sound like it should be very thrilling. However, the espionage that goes on in the cosmetic industry is
Mm.
unbelievable. And I have, it also deals with domestic abuse, but
Mm.
the opposite of what you would think. It is a woman who abuses her husband uh, viciously, physically, mentally,
Mm.
emotionally. And um, I have a wonderful street team, and I have them reading parts of it, and they were, oh, I just, you're going to kill her, aren't you? She is so evil. You're going to kill her, aren't you? And I said, you're just going to have to wait and find out. But no, she's not the one who gets killed. So it's kind of fun to twist things around.
So you're having beta readers read as you're writing?
I usually do like 5 or 6 chapters at a time. And then hopefully I leave well, I do a cliffhanger actually after every chapter. And everybody seems to like that. It's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Well, damn, where do I go next? So, yeah. So yeah, and they'll tell me, I couldn't stop reading it. You just can't, when are you going to send me anything else? So as long as I get that kind of a reaction, then I know I'm on the right track.
Do you outline beforehand?
I do an outline, a plot outline, yeah. But most of the time, I just kind of close the world off and get into the characters, and they begin to write themselves. And then I have to go back in and then do the description or details and things like that because it's just the words, the dialogue that flows so good.
So one of the readers wanted to know where we as authors write, and do we have an inspiring view? So tell us about where you write, and then tell us about your routine for writing if you have one.
I wish I did. No, I don't. um, My husband has been quite ill lately, so I
I'm
write
so
around
sorry.
doctor's appointments and visits to hospitals if it gets like that, which is another reason I'm glad to be an indie writer.
Mm.
And we, for the first time, are living in an apartment rather than a house, and that was interesting to me. We have 2-bedroom apartments, so the second bedroom is my office, and it came with this massive closet, which my husband has set up his office in the closet. So I know that sounds so strange, but I wish I could teleport a picture. He has 5 computers and monitors and then a whole
Wow.
assortment of things. He was a television engineer and actually helped create the closed captions for the hearing impaired. Yes,
Oh,
so when you
wonderful.
see that. But yeah, as for a view, I look out a window and they're building townhomes across from us. So it's some days it's quite noisy, but that's it. Um, I wish I could tell you I have a view of the ocean and listen to the waves. In my brain, sometimes I have that view. But yeah, that's it.
We are able to change our view, aren't
Yeah.
we? With what we're focusing on.
When I
Yeah.
first started writing,
Um,
all I did was I had a little portable. Now remember, in 1978, there weren't any computers, or if they were the Univacs, which were massive and mega millions of dollars. I was working on a little portable typewriter on my kitchen table. My husband worked nights at the TV station, so he was gone from 3 in the afternoon to 3 in the morning. Once I put the babies to bed, I would write from 7 at night to just about 3 in the morning and then pick everything up
wow.
because I had to, use the table for food. But it worked. It was fine.
Wow. And I think about that, and I know I could not write on a typewriter because I cut and paste so much. I move
Mhm.
things around all the time. I was very fortunate that computers existed at the time when I was coming in and wanting to write because it would not have worked. There would not be a single book, just wouldn't work. So I have great admiration for those who have written books on typewriters or earlier before there were typewriters. Holy mackerel.
We had one word to live by: whiteout.
Oh boy,
Oh
I would have
no.
needed gallons and
We did. We had a lot of gallons, and we did cut and paste. So you would
literally, yeah.
literally, literally did it, and then your final. Once you thought you had it all done, then you had um, typewriter paper, carbon paper, and onion skin paper.
Oh,
I
no,
know.
no,
Like I said,
no.
there were no Xerox machines.
Oh dear. Now, I'm curious because a question that a reader has asked, and then is about whether you miss the characters when you're done with the book, and whether you think about them after. And then I'm always curious too if that prompts writers to have a new story for the characters that they might think about or miss. And I'm wondering too, with your beta readers, do they have characters that they continue to talk about after a book is over, and has that ever prompted you to write a new book?
A lot of them do, but for the romance novels, they're all standalone. There's no continuing characters. For the thriller series, yes, I have 2 continuing characters that I love to work with. Um, and did I ever want to make a second story with a romance character? You know, in the back of my mind, I would love to have the heroes and heroines from all my romance books get on a cruise ship and then have them all meet up. Probably totally illogical. I do have with my street team, they will tell me they have characters they absolutely love. And I do get emails and things like that from people I don't know who say, "Oh, I just keep reading your one book over and over and over again." And, in my brain, I want to say, there's 14 other books you could be, you could read. But I think it's great that readers attach themselves to characters. I'm very proud of that.
Do you now, with the years that you've been in the business, do you have anything you do, or have you had at various times, to celebrate at any point in that, whether you're beginning or ending or publishing a book? Do you have celebrations?
I used to, but not anymore. It's a labor they're truly writing a book is a labor of love, and when it's finished, as soon as I turn it into an ebook, and then a create space, which then gives you a paperback book or a trade book. I do. I don't even know if people will hear it. This big sigh of relief, and then that it's done, and you don't get a little note from Amazon or Nook or Kobo saying, "Oh my God, we found this," and then you hold your breath for some reviews going out that somebody doesn't find something you completely missed, because they'll tell you, and they'll tell you sometimes very nasty, and then you hope the covers will attract them. So then it's like dressing your kid up for the first day of school and sending him off on the bus and then hoping he comes back in one piece. But that's it. No, I really am a bit angry with myself this time around. Because
Why?
I finished Dark Corners and was starting immediately to write the third in the series, Rough Edges. And then I had ear surgery. I know that sounds so stupid, but both ears. And all of a sudden, yeah, well,
Ouch.
all of a sudden, I had such a bad reaction to the little grommets. They don't use ear tubes anymore. They use grommets that they put into my ears. And I lost my balance. I had no balance. I had no hearing. And
Oh,
believe it or not, it's been 18 months of this, and I've had two more
oh
ear
my.
surgeries on each ear, and then next month I go probably for a third surgery on my right ear, and I'm ready to pull my ears out. But that has slowed down everything, so I'm very angry.
I would think so. I would think
Yeah.
it would slow you down.
Yeah. Well, right now I'm sort of rearranging my office and getting all my stuff back to get back to work on rough edges and get my people out of limbo here.
Well, that sounds like a plan. There's something about organizing things that
Yeah.
well, for me, I can always tell that the writing is not going well when like my closets are clean because when the writing's going well, who cares? It's only when you're up, your kind of head is up and you're looking around. That's when you notice the oops.
That's
These are
true.
problems. Yeah. Now, if you didn't write, what would you do for work?
Um, I think I probably would have been a lawyer.
Hmm.
I had wanted to be a lawyer. And that law school, and I had worked since I was 14 years old, but not enough for any type of college like that. But luckily, I've been a lawyer in a couple of books, and, and that's really fun.
A
So
particular kind of law?
yeah, being a writer, I can be anything.
That's true. It's one of the wonderful aspects of it.
Yep,
Was there a particular kind of law that interested you?
criminal. Yeah, criminal law.
Ah, defense or prosecutor?
Probably both.
Ah,
Go from one to another, and I see that's on TV these days. That's what seems to be the in thing to do.
yeah, that strikes me as so different. You know, that you have really different approaches. So I find that
Mhm.
very interesting. Okay. Can you tell us, do you have a book that really surprised you in the writing of it? And if you did, how did it surprise you? And did that kind of, was it a turning point for how you wrote or how you approach stories?
Hmm. Well, I'll tell you probably Dark Corners surprised me the most. Um, as I
Hmm.
said, it is quite a blend of fiction and facts and truth. Um, and I originally was working on this book. It was published first by Bantam. And I was living. My husband was working for NASA, and we were living around the space station in Houston. And I had finished the book, and it went to the editor. They changed 2 words, and they fell in love with it at Bantam. And then
Wow.
the Bantam publicity department, I had gotten stuff from the NASA library about the University of Tennessee Space Institute and incorporated that in the book. And one thing I did, I used to do tech writing when I was working at back in Schenectady, and I did tech writing with CAPL, which was the Knowles Atomic Power Lab in Schenectady. And I met Dr. Penny, and I won't spoil the story, but he gave me a gift that I always kept, and I still have it after all these years. And this is going back 1968. And I based the story around that. So I was, gearing up for another book, and there came a knock at the door. And luckily the schnauzer was outside, and I opened the door, and there was 2 guys standing there, and I said, "Can I help you?" And he goes, "Yes, we're FBI." And I said, "Oh, are you looking for my husband? He's at NASA." And he goes, "No, we're looking for you." And I said, my kids, I have to walk up and get my kids from school." And he goes, "That's all right." And I said, "What's the problem?" He goes, "Well, we're here because of the University of Tennessee Space Institute. They'd like to know, and we'd like to know how you put a top secret project in your new mystery story that is absolutely true." And
Oh,
I said to them, "Excuse me?" And he said, "Yeah." And
wow.
so I was trying not to faint and trying to figure out if I knew a lawyer. And so we had a little chat, and then they called the university from my house, and we talked, and everything. I, was very careful with how I related to the university. And I got all that information just from the high school library about the layout of the university, and that's what I put in the thing, in the story. But the actual storyline was a top secret project that they were doing, which was more than disconcerting. But the fun fact ended up, they wrote me up in their alumni story. They
Oh,
invited me to the campus, and I did a radio show there, and they sold a lot of my books.
well,
So
that's terrific. I'm thinking, why in the world did they ever tell you that you had this accurate that if they just kept quiet, everybody would think it was fiction?
I guess because they were getting ready to announce it,
Oh.
and to all the people who contributed to it. So that was amazing. The most scary part for me was the FBI showing up.
Now, when I lived in the DC area, I had a lot of neighbors who worked for the FBI, CIA, State Department, and so they
Hmm.
would I would have people coming all the time asking me because they were double checking their clearances. The the funniest one is I got a phone call and this guy said, "I want to ask you about your neighbor." And I said, "No way. I don't know who you are. Are you kidding? I'm not going to talk to you on the phone." He said, "Well, I'll give you a number to call." And I said, "No way. I'm not calling." He said, "Tell me the name of your boss and I will go through the State Department switchboard," because it was State Department security.
Hmm.
And so he did, and I called through the switchboard and got this guy, and he was laughing and he said, "You want a job?" He said, "I like people with minds like that."
Oh, that's funny. We are a clearance family here. Both my husband and son were working for the CIA, and we would get all our neighbors would call and say, "Hey, the
Yeah, yeah.
people were just here checking on you." And I said, "Yeah, get used to it." But it was funny. They even knew things like who my dog groomer was. It's very scary.
Well, I used to try to ask as many questions as I answered, so I think I probably was not real popular with them. But I will well, this was in the old days before border security became such an issue before 9/11. A friend and I had gone to Mexico I said I just wanted cross over into Mexico. So we crossed over, walked over the border, and spent a couple hours wandering around, and then we came back, which apparently is quite suspicious behavior. Um, and and we both had pretty big bags, and so we got pulled over, and the guy started going through the bags, and I was like, cool. Why did you stop us? What are you looking for? How are you doing this? What? And when would you do with this? And he looked up and he handed me the bag back and said, "Just go." And I was like, "No, I want to ask more questions." And he said, "No, just go, just go." So I
that's
figured at that
funny.
point I knew how to get across the border if I needed to. But so those are fun things that happen when you're a reader, or when you're a writer, and living kind of multiple lives vicariously.
That is true.
Now, do you have a classic or a great story of interacting with a reader? Have you had good encounters?
Well, I'll tell you one of my first ones, and it was really funny. I was doing an autographing on one of the second or third romances I wrote, and we sold like 400, and I'll never forget it, 434 books in 1 hour. I know. It was in Jacksonville, Florida. And then this one woman came up to me, and as I'm writing, my name in her book, and she said to me, "Oh, your sorority and your college must be thrilled with your success." And I said to her, "Well, I never went to college, and I was never in a sorority." And then she grabs the book away from me, and she goes, "Then what makes you think you could write a book?" And I said to her, "Because I just signed one for you." Well, but she bought it.
Oh, that's amazing.
I know. Most of the time with family and friends, and I just posted this in a Facebook group that I'm in, and you'll get I never read. I don't have time to read. Oh, isn't that sweet? You've just written a little book. And B, well, can you give me a free one? So there you go.
Some of the not favorite responses.
Not favorite things, no.
I have an early book signing. Well, one of my favorite memories of an early book signing was I was down. I think I was in Norfolk area, Virginia, and this older couple came in, and she was the reader, and he started talking with me, and he was like wearing overalls, and he had his thumbs tucked in the tops of the overalls, and he said he could not read, and he was so proud of his wife, and he said, "Any book she wants, I'm getting her." And I was just so smitten with this man and with that
that's
love.
wonderful.
Isn't that fantastic? And I
It
just
is.
he's a hero,
Mm-hmm.
He was a great guy. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a softie for that kind. So, okay, we have readers ask a couple questions, and sometimes I put these together because they are they're related in their way. How much does it bother you to find the editing errors after your book goes up live? And then the related one is, what do you feel about when a cover does not match the character that you've described?
Well, let's do the first one. Like I said, I'm a line editor, and my street team also hunts for mostly typos. I like to call them typos, although sometimes I completely baffle spell checker. Sometimes I baffle me. But it was funny. Sandra Brown is one of my oldest and dearest friends, and she said, I give up sometimes. They found 22 errors in one of her hard copy books, and she goes, we couldn't stop the presses, so they printed out little things that said where the error. You no one is perfect, so you will miss things. I try not to make sure it's not more than two. And if I find them, luckily with an ebook, you can go in there, quickly change it, and put it up there. As for covers, I try to find at least a photo of my characters that look like them. With the thrillers, it's more of an imaging thing that is part of a scene in a book. With the romances, I do try to get a character look, or at least a part of a body of a character of that. Like for Dare the Devil, the guy on the cover is, you don't see his head, though his whole head. You do see his cowboy hat and a nice arm with a tattoo on it that matches him perfectly. But that's just about the best you can do. You try to make the cover as intriguing as possible and as fun as possible. I just did new covers for all my romance novels, and I think one of my most favorite one is Video Vixen, which takes place on a soap opera, and I found this great, and it takes place at Christmas time. So I found this great cover. All you see is the back end of the model wearing very suggestive lingerie, but she's wearing Christmas socks. And everybody said to me, nobody's going to let that picture go. Yep, everybody took it. So if you look, you will see the back end of one gorgeous soap opera star wearing her Christmas socks all the way up to her knees.
Well, as long as her shins were covered.
Yeah, oh my God,
yeah. So among all your books, if one of our listeners is brand new to you, hasn't tried any of your books, what is a good entry point to your work?
Well, if they like romance, they can pick up any of them. I know it's not proper to have favorites, but Caught in a Trap is a good one. Video Vixen is total fun, especially if you like soap operas. Dare the Devil, if you're more action oriented and like strong heroines. Rules of the Game is fun. And if you like thrillers, while it's a series, you do not have to read them in order. And if you are interested, like I said, Dark Corners, today alone there was 2 alien encounters, so it has a fun premise. There are there really sightings and UFOs, or are there aliens already here?
Are those our only 2 choices?
That's it.
Can we have another choice? So how about any of your books that you might consider an overlooked gem from even your most rabid readers?
It's probably 2 of the classics that I did. No Easy Way Out and One Way or the Other. No Easy Way Out is a fun one to me because my husband was working. He's had a varied career, but he was doing the animatronics at Walt Disney World at the time, working with the robots there. And so No Easy Way Out is a story of a woman who's a genius, and she was working at with the robots in Walt Disney World, and it's a fun story, and that's kind of one that's a sleeper, but
that's a good term for them.
Yeah, a little sleeper.
I have another question from a reader, and I find this I would love to talk to the reader about what made them ask the question. And then the answers are also interesting. If you could write a book with any author, alive or dead, who would you want to work with and why?
Oh, that's really interesting. I honestly don't don't know. Write a book with any author, alive or dead. Who would you want to work with and why? Well, I grew up reading Nancy Drew, but they were all written by so many different authors, were Carolyn King. I think it would have actually been fun to work with Mickey Spillane.
Oh, there you
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
So I think I would
That's a great choice.
pick Mick.
Yeah. Pick Mick.
Pick
There
Mick.
you go. So I will give you a shot. I'll ask you, are there any questions I haven't asked you that you would like to answer?
No, I think you got me.
Okay. And how can readers find out more about you and your books?
Well, I have a webpage. Very simple. www.ElaineRacoChase.com. Everything you want to know about me is there. I have 2 Facebook pages. One is an author Facebook page, and that is Elaine Raco Chase. Then I have sort of an over-the-top Facebook page where it's not just about me, but a lot of other things. I post a lot of political things. Other friends of mine, what they're doing, and sometimes even food, and always start the day with a massive fun coffee mem or whatever they're calling it. And that's Facebook, lane.r.chase. I'm occasionally on Twitter at Elaine Raco. And I do have Pinterest, Elaine Raco Chase. So they can find me there.
Okay. And we'll put those URLs in the show notes for folks so they can click. And now we'll do the rapid fire either ors. And since you mentioned that, we'll start with a couple that key into a couple things you just mentioned, like coffee or tea.
Coffee.
Appetizer or dessert?
Can I say one of each? No meal?
No, either or.
Oh, all right. Appetizer.
Ice cream or cake?
Ice cream.
Yeah, I did give you dessert anyhow. Opera or show tunes?
Oh, neither. Show tunes, I guess, if I have to.
Day or night?
Night.
Paper plates or best china?
Paper plate.
House decorating or gardening?
House decorating.
Paint or wallpaper?
Paint.
Thank you. This is a personal test from somebody who chipped off a lot of wallpaper.
Oh God, yes.
Hiking boots or cowboy boots?
Neither, actually. Sandals, but if I have to make a choice, I guess cowboy boots, but not really.
Spring or fall?
Summer.
No. Spring or fall?
Summer.
No. Spring or fall?
Spring.
Pickup or sports car?
Sports car.
Daisies or roses?
Daisies.
Hot air balloon or train trip?
Train trip.
Cat or dog?
Dog. Schnauzers rule.
Collies. I'm a collie fan. Okay, I am not going to let you. You have to pick one of these two: Winter Olympics or Summer Olympics.
Summer Olympics.
Nail polish or bare nails.
Bare nails.
Last one: grab the best first or save the best for last.
Save the best for last.
All right. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with us, Elaine. I really appreciate it. And I hope the listeners will come back next week to meet a new author and find out more about who they are and what their stories are behind the stories. In the meantime, I wish you all a great week of reading. That's the show for this week. Hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for joining Authors Love Readers podcast. Remember, you can always find out more about our guest authors in the show notes, and you can find out more about me at www.patriciamclinn.com. You can also send in questions to be asked of future authors at podcast@authorslovereaders.com. Until next week, wishing you lots of happy reading. Bye.